Hi, Jay Fallon. Thanks for listening. And I'm going to go through two stories, both related to Queensland Police Service. I read these stories, and to me, it seems blatantly obvious that the Queensland Police Service need to change the way they currently do their business, currently conduct business for themselves. Their system of operating is not working. There are far too many mistakes. These two stories, I believe, really highlight the fact that they need to change. They need to change. At their very core, they need change. They need change in their leadership. The first story shows they have lost touch, completely lost touch, and it's the leadership team, not the man and woman on the ground. It's the leadership team. They have completely lost touch, okay? But the second story just highlights how the failure of QPS, the way they don't like too much publicity about their failures. When they do fail, they don't want the gaze of the public casting too much of a discerning eye upon their actions, upon the way they are behaving.
Got my eyes straight ahead, got my head in the game. With the red light on, I'm just waiting for the change. Keep my head down low.
Okay, I first saw this headline: Police Union launches court action against top cop Steve Gollschewski over job creation. Thought, oh, okay, might be an interesting story. So it has sensationally been taken to court, this is Gollschewski, by the union for the state's most senior police over a bombshell claim. Bombshell claim. Now, I think it's a little bit of a slight exaggeration that it's a bombshell claim. Look at Gollschewski, that's a bit of a face you're pulling there, bruh. So the union here that is talking about is for Queensland Police has two separate unions. You have the union that represents police who are of the rank of constable all the way up to senior sergeant. Okay, and then after senior sergeant, you're actually appointed into all these other positions, and they have their own separate union. I believe this was brought about basically in the Bjelke-Petersen era, and it was basically to break the strength of the union, which represented all police, all ranks up until then. I personally don't think it's a good thing. I don't think, and it really pits us versus those higher ranks. Sorry, when I say us, it pits those lower ranks versus the other ranking officers. But that's the way the Bjelke-Petersen government did it. I believe it was them. Anyway, so the union for the state's most senior police has sensationally taken Police Commissioner Gollschewski to court. The Queensland Police Commissioned Officers Union has lodged papers in the Queensland Industrial Relations Commission relating to the Chief of Staff position in the state's top office. The position was advertised in December as a Chief Superintendent role, which the union will argue in court came about without proper consultation. Now, I'm reading this headline yesterday. I thought, oh, could be an interesting story. I read through it and I thought, how flipping out of touch are these fools? Seriously, the police need a complete overhaul in the way they conduct business within this state. And yet, the top police and their union, they're worried about a staffing position and how it was advertised. The position and how, seriously, are there not more important things to be thinking about other than this and a position? So a chief of staff role of superintendent already existed with the job created above it. Now, these roles they're just a joke, an absolute joke. These are the same groups of people that have been creating jobs for their mates for decades. This has been going on. And yet, this is what they're taking him to court for. The union says then Acting Commissioner Shane Chilepi sent them correspondence about the job in August, but they have argued they weren't properly consulted. President Kerry Johnson wrote to the Commissioner about the job being advertised in the Gazette in December. Accordingly, we formally request you provide in writing full particulars of the changes proposed in relation to the creation of the Chief Superintendent position within the Commissioner's office. Mr. Johnson wrote to Mr. Gollschewski. My opinion is none of these, not none, a lot of these roles shouldn't even be going to chief super or superintendent or inspector or whatever. It's the biggest load of rubbish. These should be AO positions, a lot of them. It's just a big waste of money. You've got all this experience in these chief supers and inspectors and superintendents and blah, 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 all running around, patting themselves on the back and rubbing their butts, telling themselves how good they are because they got all these great positions, and all they are is like what is this? A position within the Commissioner's office, just assisting another commissioned officer. It's the biggest waste of resources ever. They need to cull these officers. Seriously, need to get rid of like at least 50% of them, I would say. And these positions that a lot of them take up, they could be done with just an AO. That's all it should be. I think an AO3 could do half these positions. This should include the relevant job description and a detailed explanation as to how the proposed Chief Superintendent role differs from the duties and responsibilities currently performed at the existing rank of Superintendent. The court documents filed on December 8 include an email from former Acting Commissioner Shane Chileppi sent to Johnson on August 12. The email advised Johnson the Commission's office was considering the establishment of a new role of Chief of Staff at the rank of Chief Superintendent. A new role. There should be no new role. It is an absolute waste. And they requested a response by August 20. On December 3rd, another email was sent by Johnson to Gollschewski saying the union objected to the fundamental changes to the workplace and required a response the next day. Johnson also sent an email to Gollschewski's staffer, Don Bailey, on the same day saying he was objecting on the basis that it is an upgrade to the Chief of Staff position that has a substantive occupant that won the position through a merit selection process. On December 4th, Gollschewski replied to Johnson's email advising he was satisfied the adequate consultation for the position had occurred. In a statement to the Courier Mail about the matter, Johnson said the union was concerned about dealings within the QPS. In recent times, we as a union of the commissioned officers have become concerned with how positions, well, it's a bit rich, eh? With how positions are being created, why they're being created. Yeah, he's right. How are these positions being created and why on earth are they being created at all? And if you actually need someone in a position like this, do you really need such a high-ranking officer? Can't those positions most likely be fulfilled by an AO? Okay, not having to pay someone. You've got all this policing experience and they're just sitting up there on Roma Street in an office conducting some kind of assistant role. What a load of rubbish. And what, I don't know what is more infuriating. The fact that Gollschewski has just created this new role, just created it and said, oh, no, I think it's a good thing, I'm just going to go ahead with it. Or the fact that the union, this is their greatest concern. You don't hear from them, from the officers union, the commissioned officers union, any other time. Oh, but when there's a new position that's been created by the commissioner, then they're all up in arms and going to court about it. There's all this other stuff going on within the police service, failings, complete other failings, dropping the ball by the Queensland Police Service, but you don't hear a damn thing from the officers union then. Nothing. Absolute nothing. No, because all of them are just in for themselves. They are all just bureaucrats, politicians, just lining their own pockets. And like I said, about 50% of them shouldn't even be there. 50% of those commissioned officers probably shouldn't even be a thing. They all need 50%, I think, at least, could probably have their jobs taken off them. Just my opinion. But how is that for something just pathetic? And the fact that they think, yep, this is what we should be fighting about within the QPS. Let's check out this next story. Police privacy breach puts DV survivors' lives at risk. Personally, I think this is what the union should be focusing on. Why one of their core roles they've failed, but they want to take the commissioner to court about a position. Police failed to protect survivors of domestic and family violence after inadequate safeguards resulted in a serious privacy breach, putting lives at risk. So police leaked personal information. I do believe I did an episode about this one a year or two ago. So they've leaked personal information that put the lives of domestic and family violence victims at risk, contrary to their legal obligations, according to a reported table tabled in Parliament. Can I talk properly today? According to a report tabled in Parliament. Sorry. So Queensland's Information Commissioner, Joanne Cumro, said in her report, Queensland Police's policies, procedures and systems had failed at both the technical and administration level. The Commission said on Wednesday, the Queensland Police Service had contravened the Information Privacy Act, but would not issue a compliance notice after being satisfied it had taken steps to prevent further breaches. So it sounds like they've looked at it and said, oh yeah, given themselves a little pat on the back and said, oh yeah, well done, we fixed the problem. We don't want to talk about it anymore. Nothing to see here. Just go and continue to bury your head in the sand. The security breach was revealed on July 25th, 2024, when media reported police had disclosed the address of a domestic and family violence victim to an offender. I can't remember this story properly. I'm pretty sure this was done on purpose. I might have the story wrong because there's a couple of breaches that have happened the last couple of years. Anyway, so the following day, the former acting deputy commissioner informed the Parliamentary Estimates Committee that the disclosure had occurred due to a systems error. That's right, this is this one. There's been a couple of these. Anyway, it was found the Queensland Police Records and Information Management Exchange, or QPrime, system had automatically imported the information into forms police provided to offenders and presented in courts. That is what? So what? No one read through the documents before taking them to court? There was no due diligence done, no reading through, making sure all the information was correct? What kind of numpties do we have? Precious moments. The Information Commissioner's report said Queensland Police had been aware of the privacy risks associated with QPrime's auto-population function since at least 2017 and had been slow to mitigate those risks. Well, slow to mitigate. It's only 2017. It's only been 7 years, 8 years now, but 7 years since they actually realised they'd given out that information in court. Only 7 years. You got to take your time in these things, fellas. The report concluded that the service needed to improve the transparency of its privacy complaint handling. Oh, wow. Read that again. The report concluded that the service, as in the Queensland Police Service, needed to improve the transparency. Really, this is the same Queensland Police Service that always says it's being transparent. It needs to improve its transparency of its privacy complaint handling and take a more victim-centric approach to ensure that victims were aware of their privacy rights. Wow, if only. It's strange that you would need to actually have an investigation and do up a report to say to the police that maybe you need to be more centered, more focused on protecting victims. Freaking blow my mind. This is just more infuriating the more I read it. It further said that the Queensland Police Service did not have adequate safeguards to protect the personal information it was handling and use that personal information beyond what was directly relevant to its specific purpose. Queensland Police Service going beyond what it should be doing. Cumro said the privacy breach risked further physical and psychological harm to victims, survivors from perpetrators of domestic and family violence. While the disclosure of victims' addresses to offenders by the QPS was unintentional. See, that's what makes it all right. They stand up and say, oh, but we didn't intend for this to happen, so, you can't punish us. We didn't mean for it to happen. So they get away scot-free. If you and I, if the general public did something like that, we would be facing court. Let me tell you. But they do it, oh, unintentional, Your Honour. We're so sorry. Freak. This is just infuriating. So, while the disclosure of victims' addresses to offenders by the QPS was unintentional, prioritising privacy is paramount. Well, it's not really paramount, is it, to QPS, because they're just taking the commissioner to court because he went and created another position that he probably shouldn't have created. I can't even. This is just doing my head in. According to the Commissioned Officers Union, creating a position, okay, that they didn't agree with, and they said no, it shouldn't be created, and the commissioner went ahead and created it anyway. That is of paramount importance. But this, well, and safeguarding victims' privacy, oh, we can just take 7 years. We don't have to look into that. We don't have to deal with that situation. They're just victims of domestic violence. Every now and then one of them gets ended. Wow. The arrogance and the ignorance of the Queensland Police Service will never cease to amaze me. Let's go. The report acknowledged since August 2024, Queensland Police had made a concerted effort to implement solutions to mitigate the risk of further unauthorised disclosures, and Kimro determined it was not necessary to issue the QPS with a compliance notice. QPS, Queensland Police, were contacted for comment, but they didn't respond by the deadline. Why would they respond? They don't have to. They're not answerable really to anyone. Why would they respond? So the reason why I wanted to talk about these two stories is to highlight that we have a failure. We have had this failure by the Queensland Police Service, by the Queensland Government, to protect victims of domestic violence, okay? We've had this failure, and it's been recognised, and it's been going on for years. Queensland Police Service has had this issue with auto-population in their documents since 2017. It all falls apart in 2024. So, it's only a 7-year period, so, you don't want to deal with things too quickly. But hey, of paramount importance, according to the Union for the Queensland Commissioned Officers, their most important subject is the fact that a new chief and superintendent's role is being created. That's the most important thing. Forget about the victims of domestic violence. Forget about Q Prime auto-populating areas in documents and giving away information and putting victims at risk of becoming further victims. Don't worry about all that. Let's just carry on. Let's just make a big deal. Let's go to court because the commissioner created a new role that he probably shouldn't have created, but no one's going to hold him accountable anyway, really, because he'll never get in trouble for it. They'll just go to court. They'll just decide whether he should or shouldn't, and that'll be done with it. Someone's going to get paid a lot of money. But hey, will we ever deal with the issues with domestic violence? Will we ever deal with the issues with the racism within QPS, Queensland Police Service? Because, we had that big report when they looked into domestic violence issues and racism and sexism within Queensland Police Service. And what did the Queensland Police Service say they were going to do? I think they basically said, well, we'll look into it and we'll make some changes, and haven't done a thing. But then again, if they knew that there were issues with Q Prime auto-populating documents since 2017, and, what do we expect? What do we honestly expect? We should expect more. We should expect better from our police service. But then, this is the same police service that shoots more people than all the other states and territories in Australia. And we can't expect anything from the police union, there's all this infighting obviously going on within the the other police union, and then you've got the commissioned officers union. It's just, someone needs to take the Queensland Police Service and do a wholesale change. There needs to be a complete change. But I tell you what, for a while now, I've been watching, I've been talking a lot about recruitment and recruitment practices and how they've lowered the standards. Now, a couple of years ago, I was thinking about, I thought, it doesn't really make sense why they've done things and why they're bringing certain people in, and it seems like they're lowering their standards. I don't think it's going to be good for the service, and I don't think it's going to be good for the public. Then, last week, I believe it was last week, Elon Musk had his shareholders meeting for X, Tesla, all the companies that he owns and that. And he was talking about artificial intelligence and also the robots that they're making, the humanoid robots that they're making. And there was something that he said about, why would you have jails? We're moving ahead technologically. We're going to have all these humanoid robots getting around to assist mankind, assist people in that, probably one, at least more than one for every person. You won't even need a jail. Everyone will have a humanoid robot with them at all time, and that robot will be making sure that person doesn't break the law. You don't have to, it doesn't matter. You can lower the standards for police and have a bunch of numpties walking around with guns. It's not going to matter because everyone will have a humanoid robot walking around with them to stop them from breaking the law. It might stop the police in Queensland from shooting so many people as well. Who knows? But isn't it amazing? Maybe that's why everyone's not worried. No one's worried about lowering the standards for police, and no one's worried about how many shootings we have, and no one's worried about victims of domestic violence. Maybe that's why, because they all know that we're going to have robots watching over us in a couple of years anyway. That's the big plan. I don't know. I just thought it was very interesting. Anyway, look, Gollschewski creating this role, it's pathetic, okay? It just reeks of, creating a role for a mate. That's what it reeks of. But even worse, I think, is that the Commissioned Officers Union, they get their little panties in a knot over this, and yet we've got real substantial issues within the Queensland Police Service. And, the Queensland Police Officers Union, you're still part of the Queensland Police Service. You still work within the Queensland Police Service. Why aren't you more focused on some of these basic issues that you could be helping solve? Instead of just worried about positions that, Gollschewski's creating, which I don't think should be created anyway. And as usual, victims of domestic violence, they're just left behind. No one seems to really care about them. But what do you expect? Anyway, this is all my opinion. Let me know what you think. Just another example, I think, of failure from the Queensland Police Service. We need wholesale change. I think conservatively we could probably cut down 50% of these commissioned officers' positions. Conservatively. Replace them with an AO1. This is about as bright as they are. And take it from there. Let me know what you think. I'm Jay Fallon. Check out my music. Thanks for listening to The Slippery Slope.
They just fuel the desire that will take me higher. I'm on fire because nothing's gonna bring me down. Got my eye on the prize.